A little bit of housekeeping before we start. Hello, Rafael. Um, I'm uh, alone at home at the moment, so if someone comes by my door, you might hear some sound, some noise, and I might have to take it. So I hope that doesn't happen, but working from home has its advantages and disadvantages, correct? Um, folks, so you might also get some participation from my dogs in this session. Folks, awesome, right? Folks, this session is a session that is very dear to me, and I find it interesting that it is also part of other teachers' interests to discuss a little. Hi, Manuel. Oh, I wish I can visit Mexico one day. For teachers who want to have a better strategy or one strategy to prioritize their continuous professional development. We know that, especially in Brazil, I cannot speak for the rest of the world, but I believe that you probably have a very similar situation there. If you're a teacher who doesn't engage with professional development, you're going to have a very tough career, right? You're going to have a lot of trouble working for good paying schools, working for yourself and building your own business. And I feel that professional development has, especially for me, in my perspective, I think professional development is something that is very close to personal development, in my opinion. I don't think we can separate who we are professionally from who we are personally. Usually, when I introduce myself to people, I say, "Hi, I'm Bruno. I'm a teacher," right? And being a teacher is a huge part of my identity. It's what I do most of the day. It influences what I read, what I watch, how I read, and how I watch things. So, if you're a teacher at heart, I bet you watch Netflix and sometimes you take notes of things that you see on Netflix. Or when you're reading something, sometimes you pause and then, oh, this is an interesting word. Maybe you want to bring it to that student of yours on the next day. So, in that sense, prioritizing your right, Philippe, prioritizing your continuous professional development, I think it's also prioritizing your personal development. And this session was designed out of a very common, hi Isabel, out of a very common anxiety that I think teachers feel, um, probably most people feel, but since we're teachers or we're dealing with education, I'm going to talk from this perspective, which is FOMO. FOMO stands for fear of missing out, right? So it's this anxiety that when you're not embarking on this new opportunity that you saw on Instagram or LinkedIn, or that you got an email telling you about, you feel that if you don't embrace this opportunity, you will be missing out on something, right? And then you get this fear of missing out on something that would be interesting or relevant to your professional development. I got this feeling somewhat recently, last year, when the British Council opened this call for trainers to take part in a training course that they were offering. If I'm not mistaken, something like Pacti or La Pacti, something like that, which would then help these teacher educators to work with other teachers from around the world. And at the time, I was working on my master's degree. I'm still working on my master's degree. And I felt I just didn't have the time. And then I passed on the opportunity. I don't know if they would call me, but didn't. I didn't apply to the opportunity. Some months later, in Brastisso's international conference in Goiânia in July last year, I saw that many of some friends of mine, like four or five of them, were together in this presentation by the British Council, talking about how interesting and the training was, and how excited they were for the opportunity of working with teachers across the globe. And this is when I got this feeling of I missed out on this. I could be doing this work that seemed interesting to me at the time with my colleagues, with my friends, and I'm not, because I didn't prioritize it. And sometimes later, I reflected on the opportunity and on what I would have to give up for embracing this opportunity. Here in Brazil, we have the singer who says "Cada escolha é uma renúncia," which is in English would be for every choice you make, there is one choice that you're not making. Right? That's from Charlie Brown Jr. Um, and which is funny because it seems that it's a one-to-one relationship, right? So you say yes to one thing while saying no to another thing. However, that's not how it works, right? Usually, when you say yes to one thing, you're actually saying no to a million other things, right? So when you choose to take a master's degree in English language teaching with a specific focus, you're saying no to many other opportunities that will come during this period, or when you're taking a CELTA or taking a Delta or an undergrad course. You are you're making a choice today that will impact and will cause you to say no to several other opportunities throughout the duration of this choice in particular, right? And to existentialists such as Foucault, this brings this feeling of anxiety that, in the one hand, we feel that we are responsible for who we become due to our decisions, not entirely responsible. We know that chance plays a huge part in this, but if you only account the part that is under your control, making good choices and sticking to making good choices is fundamental for you to chart a path towards your goals, towards your dreams, and the things that you want in life. So, together with this freedom of choosing and making good decisions or bad decisions, also comes the responsibility of being, well, for lack of a better word, of being responsible, of being held accountable for your decisions, which incurs, again, in this feeling in this anxiety that we call FOMO, this fear of missing out, because we know that we are responsible for our choices. And if we're making a choice of not choosing that thing, we fear that we might be missing out on something. So this session uh, aims at showing you a thought framework to decide whether or not a certain professional development opportunity is worth your time and your money, so that you can turn FOMO into the much happier cousin, joy of missing out, right? And we only feel this joy of missing out when you're sure that this decision that you're not making, this opportunity that you're not embracing, is one that is not a priority at the moment. And as you can probably guess, I did not get to this thought framework with the help of Scott Thornbury or Penny or any of the ELT gurus out there. This thought framework came from philosophy. So, according to Aristotle, in a book that he wrote to his son, which is a manual on how to be happy, can you imagine the pressure that this kid might have felt being the son of Aristotle? And then Aristotle comes and says, hey, here's a 300, 400 book for you, a manual on how to be happy. Just follow the rules, follow the guidelines, and you're going to have a full life. Um, so Aristotle believed that excellence was the path to happiness. So by being excellent, and he meant being excellent in a very interesting perspective, he thought that for us to be happy, the famous sentence, know thyself, right? So you have to know yourself and know where your place in the universe is. You have to find your place in the universe, get to this place, and perform to the best of your natural abilities. And he believed this so strongly that he thought that this was why smoke would rise up in the air, because smoke's place in the cosmos was together with more air. And he thought that a rock would fall to the ground because the rock's place in the cosmos, in this tight, perfect machine designed by the gods, was on the ground together with more rocks, right? So if you think about it, well, we're teachers, so our place is in education, our place is in teaching. And if you're not a teacher, if you're like a materials designer, materials writer, or you work with assessment and you design assessments, that there is, I think we can help. I think I can help you find your place in the universe as well in the next 30 or so minutes. I know it's bold, but bear with me. So, to Aristotle, we had to find our place in this perfect machine designed by the gods and perform to the best of our abilities. And by doing so, we would be happy. So, in this session, we're going to find the path to happiness, which is which connects very closely to Solo's taxonomy. You're probably familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, which organizes uh, thinking processes between lower order thinking skills and higher order thinking skills. So from bottom to top, we have remember, understand, apply being lower order thinking skills because they demand little from our cognitive abilities. And then analyze, evaluate, and create, which demand more. So it is believed that by engaging in activities that involve some sort of analysis, evaluation, or creation, we are using more cognitive fuel, let's say, and through this, we are developing more, right? This is very common to see in bilingual schools using the Bloom's taxonomies levels to plan the unit or to plan lesson objectives, right? So if you want a very easy class, you have something where the objective is to remember and understand and maybe apply. But if you want a more challenging lesson, a more engaging lesson, you will aim to analyze, evaluate, and create. Yeah. But as you can see, Bloom's taxonomy analyzes the thinking processes, the level of cognitive activity. Solo's taxonomy, on the other hand, analyzes cognitive outcomes, analyzes not the process, but the end goal, but the end result. So you can say that Bloom's taxonomy is a means to Solo's taxonomy. So Bloom's order of thinking processes is an instrument to Solo's taxonomy of learning outcomes. There is this fun TPR activity that we can do to remember Solo's taxonomy. By nothing, this is pre-structural. This means that you don't understand the point. You know nothing about it, right? You're as ignorant as Jon Snow. Then you move up a level and you get to surface learning, right? So there is unistructural, meaning that you understand one focus point about that thing that you're trying to learn, right? And this doesn't mean that unistructural is bad, as it may seem that when we talk about Bloom's taxonomy, it seems that getting learners to remember and understand it kind of seems like a bad thing, right? But it's important to remember that without understanding and without being able to remember, there is no learning. There is no learning without memory formation, right? So we have to remember stuff to be able to say that you're learning, that you're developing. Yeah. Solo's taxonomy goes in unison with this. When you look at unistructural and you don't add the value to it, saying, oh, this is bad. No, this is just surface learning. You're getting there, right? You're developing. Yeah. And then so you go from unistructural to multi-structural, meaning you have lots of pieces of knowledge about one topic, right? So you can recite many things, but you're not able yet to connect them, to relate them, as in cause and consequence, and what comes before, what comes after, what is foundational, what is uh, peak, what is a detail, and what is the basis of what you're learning. You know, lots of bits of pieces of information. Yeah? And this stands for surface learning. On to deep learning is when you get these many pieces and you begin to connect them and to be able to relate them to each other, yeah, and form this coherent, cohesive body of knowledge. And then when you're able to abstract on this is when you attain, according to Solo, it's when you attain this higher level of understanding, right? So you have learned this in a deeper level. Allow me to illustrate extended abstract learning. So we know that in traditional 1970s language learning, language teaching actually, we talk about the PPP framework, where the teacher presents a language topic to students, yeah, either inductively or deductively. You present the grammar box. Then you get students to practice this grammar in filling the gaps and maybe a drill, something repetitive. And then you get students to produce the language in a more freer practice, perhaps something that resembles a communicative activity. Yeah. So present, practice, production. You can extend this abstract knowledge to other areas of life. So, say you want to teach your son to swim, you can present the movement. You can get your child to practice this movement. So, first, just the arms, and then you put that surfboard, that tiny surfboard between their legs, and then they practice with their hands. And now they practice holding the surfboard and just moving the legs. You give them feedback, you correct them, you make sure they're moving correctly, and then you take the surfboard out, and then they put the two things together and they swim. This is present, practice, production, right? So we're using something that you learned in the past to teach languages to teach someone how to swim. And it's very clear that you can use this, I'm sorry, this framework to teach people how to cook, to teach people how to drive a car, which might make you wonder if present, practice, production is the best way to teach a language, since the complexity and the level of sophistication of language acquisition and swimming is so distant, right? But this is an example of how you can extend an abstract, a piece of knowledge, a piece of relational, multi-structural knowledge that you have in ELT to another area. So it's very clear that when we're talking about excellence, being excellent, we're talking about this last level. We're talking about deep learning, extended abstract. So problem solved, right? So for us to be excellent, all we have to do is to attain a very deep level of learning of everything. Yay, problem solved. I think the anxiety levels rise, right? That's not doable. Yeah, so we have to prioritize. We have to pick, to be able to decide what deserves to be knowledge that is extended and abstract and relational and multi-structural, and knowledge and skills that maybe don't even deserve to be learned. Maybe it should be in pre-structural, or maybe unistructural. Maybe you know a little bit of this here and there. And this is where another philosopher comes into play, Epicurus. Epicurus was a philosopher that talked about human necessities. And he believed that for people to be happy, they should live a life of pleasure. And pleasure, according to Epicurus, is attained when you fulfill a desire that you have. However, fulfilling all of humans' desires will kill you very swiftly, right? So there must be a way of categorizing human desires that deserve to be satisfied and human desires that should not be satisfied, according to Epicurus. Epicurus has three categories for this prioritization. Epicurus talks about natural and necessary human desires. Natural desires are those that are common to every human being. Everybody has them. And necessary are those that, well, if not fulfilled, we perish. For example, drinking water, sleeping, and eating, right? So they are common to everybody, and they are not optional. They are necessary for survival. The next one is the ones that are natural and unnecessary, meaning that they are common to all human beings, but if we do not satisfy these desires, we don't die, we don't perish. For example, drinking wine, a good wine, having maybe going to a sushi buffet. I don't think it's natural. It's not everybody, but having a lot of the food that you love, I think it's a natural desire. Sex is a natural desire that is unnecessary, and this is something that Epicurus talks about. Epicurus is not talking about the survival of the species. He's talking about the survival of the individual. So sex is unnecessary to Epicurus. And the last category are the desires that are unnatural, meaning not everybody has them. So they are artificial, they are learned, they are internalized, and unnecessary. Without them, we do not die. Yeah. How do we bring this to our context, right? Um, think about either your profession that you have today or the profession that you would like to have. Yeah, maybe you are looking for a transition. Maybe you're a teacher and you want to, maybe you're a school teacher and you want to have your own private little business. Or maybe you're a teacher and you want to move on to materials design or to working with assessment. Um, think then about this target profession or the profession that you have and that you want to become better at. What are the desires, the skills, and the knowledge that every professional in this chair wearing this hat must have? I'm an English teacher and a teacher educator. I have my own little business. It is natural to me to desire a very high level of English proficiency. It is natural and necessary to me to desire a very high level of language awareness. It is natural and necessary to me to have knowledge of business management. Even though it's a small business, I still have to know how to acquire new clients, how to charge these clients, how to make sure that they pay me on time so that I can pay my bills, how to advertise my services to other clients so that I can have this steady stream of clients and not fall into a hiatus of clients and not be able to pay for my stuff. These are all natural and necessary. Oh, I also must know how people learn languages, how people learn a second or an additional language. I must also know how to teach classes, how to assess students, right? The natural and necessary. Notice that in no moment here knowing how to design cool slides appears. Because even though this is possibly natural or unnatural, I'm not really sure if this is something that everybody wants to be able to do. I would probably have it in unnatural and unnecessary. But you see, learning how to design beautiful slides is not a necessity for me, right? Most of my classes, not to say all of my classes, but 99% of my classes, I don't use slides with my students. So this is not something that I need to be able to do. But as a teacher educator in these webinars, if I just come here and talk to you, you might get bored because there's no visual or something. So it might be something that is natural and necessary for my teacher educator hat, but not for my teacher hat. However, it is natural and unnecessary nowadays, for example, to desire to be able to use AI properly, right? It's not something that it's necessary. I certainly don't believe in those threatening views that, oh, if you don't use AI, you're not going to have a job, you're going to lose your job, or you're going to starve because you don't use AI. I certainly don't subscribe to that. I think it's silly to think that a teacher that doesn't use AI is going to be substituted by AI or by a teacher who uses AI. Um, I don't think that a teacher that uses Kahoot will ever substitute me with my students or something of the sort. I don't think that's why these movements happen, right? But it might be a natural desire because AI is all over the place now, but it's not something that is necessary. It is it is also natural and unnecessary to be able to use Kahoot properly in class or to use Gemboard. I don't know if Gemboard still exists. And it's unnatural and unnecessary to have a million followers on Instagram or to post every day or to send Meta your money so that they can fund genocides. But it is unnatural and unnecessary to wish for fame, to wish for likes, to, well, you get the drift. Yeah. So, what we can do with this in mind is we can match Epicurus categories, natural and necessary, natural and unnecessary, unnatural and unnecessary, to Solo's taxonomy and have a cohesive device to how to decide whether or not this specific CPD initiative is worth it for me, if it's the time now, and if it's not. For instance, it is clear that knowledge and skills that are natural and necessary for my profession or the profession I would like to have, it has to live in this realm of extended and abstract. Also, that the desires for skills and knowledge that are natural but unnecessary, they can live in this realm of being relational and multi-structural, right? So you might know lots of things about, say, designing cool slides. So, oh, I can make colors, I can play with colors, I can play with some design here or there, but I don't know how to make, as you can see, I don't know how to make transitions, those cool transitions and things that move around. So you can clearly see that my skills with this is in between multi-structural and relational. I would probably say multi-structural, right? So I know how to do many things, but I don't know how these things work together and how I can make them work better together. And finally, for knowledge and skills that are unnatural and that are unnecessary, these can stay either at the ignorance level, pre-structural, I don't need to know this, or they can stay in the unistructural level of attainment of cognitive abilities. Yeah. And before we move on, can we try an exercise? Yeah. I'd like you to type in the chat so that I have some time for my coffee that's gone cold. I'd like you to type in the chat either the profession you have right now or the profession you would like to have. You don't have to make it specific if either it's your current profession or the profession you want to have. But type the profession that you have or you want to have and one piece of knowledge and one piece of skill that you find natural and necessary for this profession of yours. Can we try that? I'll give you a couple of minutes. Ugh, I made Nescafe and it's cold. Brilliant. Okay, so a professor dealing with challenges, definitely. Knowing English and being able to deliver presentations, excellent. Okay. So this thought framework, so teacher communication skills, definitely, right? Teachers have to be good communicators. Yes, especially language teachers, right? So we don't only teach students how to use grammar and pronunciation accurately, but how they can how teach students how to communicate better, how to be better at conversation, right? Or presentations, for instance. Mhm. So my suggestion with this is that, and this is Epicurus' suggestions as well, for desires that are natural and necessary, we should fulfill these as often as possible, right? Because these are the ones that are essential to us. The ones that are natural and unnecessary, they are not to be avoided, but taken with a pinch of salt. Fulfilling desires that quenching desires that are natural and unnecessary can never get ahead of fulfilling desires that are natural and necessary. So if you have, according to Epicurus, and this is also my perspective though, but if you still have an area of knowledge or skill that you perceive as natural and necessary, I believe you should tackle these immediately, as soon as possible. And then you can move on to areas where you think that they are natural but unnecessary for you to perform that profession. Yeah. And Epicurus would say that for the desires that are unnatural and unnecessary, these are desires that should not be indulged in, as they, most of the time, they waste our time, they waste our resources, and they are unhealthy, according to Epicurus, and they are detrimental to a happy life. So, as Aristotle would say, that excellence is this path to happiness. I hope that by using these categories, and these categories, they might change for you. The items in these categories, they might change with time. They might be different depending on who you are and your desires and your perception of the market and your perceptions of uh, the abilities and the knowledge that the market demands of this professional. So, for example, Rafael is saying that he's an English teacher and would like to be a teacher educator. So, proficiency examinations and get better at teacher networking. Yeah, so perhaps you're talking about the proficiency in the language, I think. Yeah, and then getting like a certificate of proficiency or something. Yeah. So depending on your target and your objectives, the items that you will allocate to each of these categories, they might change drastically from one person to another. And through time, you will see that these items, they will also change. But I feel that following, oh, I see, Rafael. And by, I think that by following a method of prioritizing your development to things that are natural and necessary for that profession of yours, we can achieve this excellence that Aristotle was talking about, performing at our best in the place that we have found that the universe has designed us to occupy. Um, I wish you a very happy career. Thank you very much for being here with me today. Before we go, however, I would like to extend an invitation from the Brastiso team I am currently the communications director of Brastiso National. And as you might know, we're having our Brastiso International Conference online this year in the metaverse. So it's going to be very interesting to kind of see everybody walking around the metaverse. And specifically for people attending this session, we are giving everyone a 20% discount in the tickets for our Brastiso International Conference. If you click that button on top, register, that's going to take you to the registration page, which is not where you want to click right now. If you want to use this discount will be valid to the end of today. You're going to write an email to dai.pereira@brastiso.org.br. So dai.pereira@brastiso.org.br. Tell her that you want to register for the conference and send her the code Disal. And you're going to get 20% off in your ticket. Folks, thank you again for being here. I hope this has been useful. I know this is not like a recipe of how to prioritize your career, but notice how arrogant it would be if I would come here and tell you the exact steps that you must take to advance in your career, right? So I think this is a deeply individual endeavor to analyze what's natural and necessary for you, what's natural but unnecessary, and what's simply a waste of your time and a waste of your money. And I hope this framework can help you separate um, the initiatives that will push you forward from the activities, the initiatives that are just there to perhaps distract you and sell a funny course. Yeah. Thank you very much. And I'll see you around. Don't forget the email di.pereira@braciso.org.br. Send her the code Disal and she'll give you a discount. Hope to see you in July. Bye bye.